Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Health Tech Beat podcast. The mission of our podcast is to show real life challenges of implementing technology in healthcare. The podcast is sponsored by Demigos, a company that develops IT solutions for healthcare startups and companies. You can check more information on demigos.com. My name is Ivan Dunsky, your host as always, and today I'm joined by an honored guest, Ankit Anand. Ankit is Vice President of Software Engineering at Sleepiz. He leads the software team and heads the India business of the company. And Ankit started his first venture at the age of 17, and his entrepreneurial experience spread between different continents and domains. Moreover, he studied physics at Zurich and was awarded the Leader of Tomorrow by the 49 Gallon Symposium. Ankit was also listed among 100 young leaders for the Global Leadership Challenge 2021. Ankit, thank you for joining us today. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you for the nice introduction. And yeah, I'm doing good. Thank you. How about you?
Yeah, I'm fine. Thank you. We can probably start from the company you currently work at. And could you please tell us about Sleepers and about your products you're building?
Yes, sure. So Sleepiz is a medical device company, a startup started at ETS Zurich spin-off in Zurich. And we are developing easy to use medical devices. So we try to combine these two value proposition. They should be easy to use while they should have medical grade accuracy. So one of the device that we developed is a for world's first contactless health monitor, vital sign monitor, which runs on a radar technology, sit on your bedside table and can measure your health conditions without touching you. So the goal that we are working towards is, the two use cases that we are using this device for or our technology for, as we said, easy to use with medical grade accuracy. One is sleep apnea diagnosis at home. So sleep apnea, if you know about this disease, is highly prevalent but highly undiagnosed. Like 1 billion people suffers from the disease, but 800 million are undiagnosed. And the diagnosis technique, the test technique is so ageist, right? You have to put 30 plus cable on your body and sleep in a sleep lab to get diagnosed. We are changing that. So you can, using our device with medical grade accuracy, you can get diagnosed for sleep apnea or get tested for sleep apnea at a comfort of your home. So that's one of the use cases that we use our device for. Another use case that we use our device for to early detect code blue in a hospital. So in a hospital, a lot of like 85% of beds are normally unmonitored. Like you have ICUs which are monitored, but the 85% of beds are unmonitored. And if a patient suddenly start to deteriorate, the current state of the art doesn't allow that you can actually flag it because normally you go on around every 6 hours and you take the vital. We
Mhm.
provide a hospital to upgrade themselves with a 24/7 monitoring using our device, which is patient is not even feeling that is being monitored because a contactless device placed on your bedside table. But it monitors you with a medical grade accuracy and nurses can get alerted remotely if a deterioration start to happen and they can take an action. So yeah, these are the two use cases we are currently focusing upon using the technology that we developed, world's first contactless, medical grade, CE certified health monitor.
Got it. And how bad is the disease? And do you use the hardware for patients like kind of after the prescription, or is it like just open to public and
Mhm.
people can buy it on the market?
So as far as sleep apnea is concerned, that's the route that we wanted to go. That because if we go open to prescription, already we are not addressing the problem of this disease being undiagnosed, right? Because there is a huge inertia among people to go to a doctor and get tested, and that's the reason why this disease remains undiagnosed. So answering your question, this device is open to the public where they can just book. We offer direct to consumer service. They can go on our web shop that we have in different countries. Currently we are operational in Switzerland, Germany and India. So they can go to our web shop. If you go to our website
Mm-hmm.
sleepiz.com, it will redirect you to the right web shop of your country, and you can simply order. Device will be delivered at your home. You sleep with the device for 3 nights, and we send you a report that you have sleep apnea or not. And we also, that is
Mm-hmm.
followed by a consultancy that what your report primarily means. And then a patient can take a call. I mean, of course, after if they have sleep apnea, then we refer them to a right doctor in their respective geography, which we partner with, where they can go and take the further steps. We also recently launched our first online sleep lab, where actually they can complete the entire treatment journey also together with us, where we partner with one of the leading sleep labs of Switzerland. So
Mm-hmm.
yes, it's open to public, and that's how we want to keep it in beginning, because that's where we will basically bridge the gap of highly undiagnosed people to diagnose, to get them more and more people diagnosed about this disease. So when it comes to sleep, yeah, of course, hospital one is definitely on prescription because patients are already in
Mm-hmm.
hospital. Hospital
Sure.
monitoring is when doctor says that this patient needs monitoring.
Could you please tell us about apnea and how bad is the disease for a patient?
Yeah. So sleep apnea, just to go a bit more on a medical side, so it's a
Yeah.
disease where your breathing pauses while you are sleeping. So you get very
Uh-huh.
short pauses of the breath. This can be 10-second or 20-second or something of that short pauses. And because of that pauses in the breath, what happens? You get a very short awakenings throughout the night. You hardly end up falling in a deep sleep or a proper restful sleep. And you feel like I slept for like 8 hours, but actually, effectively, you rested for very small amount of time during the night, right? And
Mm.
because of that reason, you may feel tired entire the day while you are sleeping
Mm-hmm.
8 hours, 8, 10 hours. You think that my sleep schedule is perfect, but actually, the medically, there is some other reason why you are having this problem. So this is what the sleep apnea do, and this leads to several short-term and long-term problems. Short-term challenges like as is loss of productivity, daytime tiredness. Even a lot of sleep apnea patients get napping while they are just sitting, and that can also lead to a car accident if they are driving. Right, they get a short nap
Mm-hmm.
while they are sleeping because they do not have a restful sleep. So that's a short-term implication, but also other problems which they develop in long term, like obesity, snoring, diabetes, cardiac issues. So there are several issues that they develop on a long term. And that's what our company's goal is, right? That we want to move to preventive healthcare. And sleep is one of the areas where we know a lot about your health. So if we actually try to know medically what's going on with your sleep, we can find out and avoid the long term problems. So that's the consequence of the disease, right? So it can lead to a short term complication. Now, the second question that I would like to lead now, okay, this is a problem. How many people have it? So, as I said, actually, one in the seven people on this earth almost have sleep apnea. Like 1 billion people are suffering from this disease, right? So, it's highly prevalent, but the awareness is super low. That's why a lot of people don't know about it because they don't even realize they have a problem, right? They are saying, I'm sleeping fine and just tired, it's okay. But they are not realizing that it's leading to a certain big problems within that.
Patients don't notice that they wake up during the night, right?
Yeah, they normally don't notice that they wake up during the night. And one of the visible symptoms are like, for example, snoring or daytime tiredness. And if you're aware about the disease, you can point out. But if you're not aware about the disease, you won't point out that this is actually sleep apnea.
Mm.
Right?
What causes the disease?
Yeah. So the cause of the disease is that normally your tongue, while you're sleeping, your tongue falls back. When your tongue relaxes, that falls back on your airway. I mean, this is one symptom I'm describing about obstructive sleep apnea. There are two types: obstructive, which is more prevalent, and then there is a central sleep apnea. But in obstructive, your tongue basically relaxes and falls on your airway. And because of that, it blocks your air, right? So that's the one of the main reason, medically reason why this happens, and it can be treated. There are different treatment options. I wouldn't get into much detail otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
We are having a
Yeah.
full medical lecture here, and the doctor will say, "Who are you to make this seminar?" So, but there are treatments, but if treated on time, people can get a restful sleep and avoid long term complications. But if most problem is that people just don't know is sleep apnea. I mean, a lot of people don't even know the name of the disease, that sleep apnea, what it is. And it's also very common in our lifestyle, right? That if you snore, your family will just laugh at you. Ah, you snore. But it
Yeah.
can have a medical reason, which we normally ignore.
So, as I understood, your solution is tailored more to diagnose the problem, right?
Yes. Our current solution is focused on testing. As I said, we are also offering treatment together with our partners just to give also patients the
Mm-hmm.
holistic solution. But the technology that we developed is the core focus was to have very easy to use, but with medical grade accuracy, the diagnosis or test or screening,
Mm-hmm.
whatever you want to call it in different medical terms. And that
Mhm.
report they can take to doctor and start their treatment.
Got it. Yeah, our podcast is about technology. So could you please tell us about what is on the technology side? What do you have? So I assume you have the hardware and also the software. So could you please elaborate on that?
Mhm. So this whole technology looks like, so we have this device, which is a radar-based device that you put on your bedside table, and that measures your sleep condition using a radar. But now entire data is transmitted directly to the cloud. So the device just records that radar signal, but then the data goes to the cloud. Within cloud, the all algorithms that we have developed that runs the processing, and finally, back like the doctors or even our internal team has this access of a totally anonymized reports of a patient where they will get the full access remotely that what is the final report coming out, and that report
Hmm.
will be finally shared directly with the patients or with the doctors. So that's one part of the tech stack, but there is much more to it because the device, as I said, for different applications we use it. So device also allows to have a real time access of the entire vital sign of the patients, right? So a doctor sitting anywhere in the world, just logging on their web application, can just check what is the vital sign of their patients sitting another part of the world. Your patient is in Australia, you are sitting in US, and you can actually
Hmm.
look at real time how your patient is doing and how their vital sign is, right? So they have even real time access. They have historical report, trend report over the weeks, nights, and months. All these access you get. So this web application gives you the entire access to the health condition of the all different patients of one doctor that is managing. So if you are managing 100 of your patients, you have the entire report on your fingertip. So that's device, cloud, and web application. That's the tech.
Sure. Could you please, like in just a nutshell, in general terms, tell how the hardware works? So does it like just listen for the sound? How it works?
So the hardware is based on a millimeter wave radar. So it doesn't, that's how we protect privacy. You don't want somebody recording your sound while you are sleeping in your room.
Hmm.
So it's a radar based device. It has a millimeter wave radar, which, I mean, if you heard about radar, basically any radar which used for military or whatever application you use in different radar is what? It measures the distance. So what we do that our device measures very accurately to millimeter precision the distance of your chest wall. So basically, when you breathe, your chest wall is vibrating. And our device using a radar measures the vibration of your chest. So it makes the entire how are you breathing. And from that, you can extract vital signs like breathing rate or heart rate, or when apnea happens, your breathing pauses. So naturally, your breathe, you will see that on your chest motion, right? Your chest motion will shrink, right? And from there, we detect the apnea event. So this measures very accurately the motion of your chest wall primarily, and everything follows from there that you extract.
So it means that as a patient, you need to be on a specific position to be measured correctly.
No.
Or,
So that's the beauty of it because the algorithm is so robust that it can detect, you can just sleep as comfortably you are sleeping on your natural cycle. So if your algorithm knows what to track and how to track,
of
whichever
course,
position you are primarily
yeah,
there, doesn't matter. We will be able to track accurately what's your breathing and how is your breathing pattern on which we extract the disease signatures, basically.
cool. And could you please tell us about the actual development? Where do you face more challenges on the hardware or software side?
That depends who you would ask for because so we have to understand. So whenever it comes to technology, all of them are challenging and all of them are fun as well. I mean, that's why you end up doing a startup there because you also not you like this challenge, right? But when it comes to hardware and software, there is an inherent difference between that, which has its own positive side, it has a negative side as well. So hardwares have a longer development cycle. So you design a hardware, then of course you have to send for manufacturing and then you have to roll it out. And this
Hmm.
whole process takes a lot of time. So you cannot afford to have very weekly sprint where you're making the changes in our hardware every week. That doesn't make sense and it won't happen. This won't never happen, right? So that's one challenge of hardware that you have to freeze your design very early and you have to whatever you design is very robust, which is keeping a longer timeline in head that it will sustain through all the changes that might come through. That's the challenge. But of course, it also, for a technical team, is also there is a breathing space afterwards. Once you froze one design, sent for manufacturing, then you can be creative, you can think about the next steps and do more structured design afterwards, right? When it comes to software, it gives you flexibility because you are running a cloud software, and of course you have in medical there is also some restriction how soon you can roll out thing, but it still is relatively flexible that you can roll out new features. So that gives you and freedom to use some more agile methodology. But it also
Yeah.
comes with a challenge that you don't have breathing space because you always want to do something nice and cool, right? So you're always you
Where
want
to stop?
where to stop. So you don't know. A lot of time you end up over engineering also. Like over engineering is one of the challenge that we all as a startup faces, right? That you're just doing it because you can. And that's where the challenge is to define that thin line where to stop.
And where are your distribution markets? Where do you sell the products?
So currently we are active in Europe. So like Switzerland and Germany is the two countries that
Mhm.
we started with. And then we are also active in India. So that's another country. And we'll be soon also expanding our business to other countries, for example, US as well. We recently, so we will move to other countries as well. But this part you will hear from the public news once we go more countries or something like that.
Will it be required to go through the FDA?
Yes. And okay, there will be a good news coming soon on that end. I
Okay.
would say.
So there is a fact that there is a global shortage of engineers. And do you challenge this problem yourself, and how you overcome it?
Of course, we cannot be immune from this problem because finding the talent remains the challenge across any vertical or any business that you do, right? So, yes, and a technical team is always very, as you said, the global shortage. So, yes, we have that. What helped us being very remote friendly team from the day one. So,
Hmm.
we launched our office subsidiary in India already first year of our foundation of our startup, right? So like we started the company in 2018 and 2019 already we started our subsidiary in India. It's not just the subsidiary in India which matters, but because of having two location team distributed while they are working on a same team or same project, even since then working remote was a part of the inherent culture, right? That people were very used to of working together, as a team, but still working remotely. And that helped us also during the COVID. Suddenly, when we had to all go to home and start working from home, the transition for us was smooth, right? And that power that we just did in a very beginning, just without thinking too much about it, but now we really enjoy that position because if I have to hire from any country around the world, we don't worry about that part, that how would you manage that country versus that country, because you have done it, been there, done it, right? So
Hmm.
that gives us an open option to a global talent as well. So there is a global shortage, but if you look around, if you just open your option around the world,
Hmm.
you should be able to find somebody who is good in your team, right? So that's how we are addressing it.
It depends on what technology you use.
Yeah, of course, there are certain technology. Even if you open the floor all around the world, you will still have shortage. But I mean, at the end, we are a startup, so we don't need thousands of engineers. We need some.
Yeah. You have two development teams, so I assume one is in India and one is in Europe, in Switzerland.
I wouldn't call it two different teams. It's the same team actually.
I mean, two
Locations
locations of the team.
currently spread in two countries. Dominantly, we also have some other countries where they contribute. There are other people, less amount of people, but these two countries has the most of our technical team spread into.
Do you use some external development teams? And if so, what is your experience with that?
We did that. So I mean, also when in beginning it was very helpful. So like our first team was quite external, right? The distribution between internal and external team was very high, and that's how we got quick start, right? Because you don't have to go through the entire hiring process and find the right people on your team. You
Mhm.
already have a set of people with diverse skill that you can immediately start with. So our beginning for software team was heavily external, and slowly once we started building our culture and starting to know more of our requirement, we internalized those positions. And it was very clear between our partners as well that this is the pathway we will proceed into. So it was very beneficial to get started in beginning, right? And we still use that approach whenever we have an urgent project coming up. So if we have an urgent project and we don't have enough resources allocated to it, it's very nice to just have that an external team who does that, and slowly your team, if you think this is a long term project, then you try to internalize it. If it was just a short term project, you finish definite goal, then you close it as well. But just difference between the two, I would say why what are the challenges and so not challenge or benefits. Putting what I would like to say, it's why this whole discussion even comes external versus internal. Why do we even
Yeah.
use this external versus internal? In our case, it was just the payroll which was different, right? They were getting paid by somebody else and other HR processing their payment. But our work was always like one team, right? We had the same common meetings that our daily catch up they were participating in throughout the day. So it's just your extended team. So if you can develop that culture, then external versus internal boundary and the challenges fades actually. Then it's the same, right? The way you train or you develop your culture, if you transmit the same culture to the other team, why not? But only thing is that if you can develop that culture, right? You can have that vibe among is that you are interacting, you are also contributing to their progress. I mean, what I realize that why some external team developer may not be that much enthusiastic about you versus their own managers, right? Because
Hmm.
if they don't know how much you are contributing to their progress, right? Because maybe you're not part of their appraisal process, you are not part of their age, right? But that doesn't matter because if you can still spend time with them, help them in your career growth as a manager, right? Make them feel home in your own team, then they start really putting the similar effort that your internal team will do. So I would say, long story short, it's all about developing the right culture. If you make people feel home and they resonate that with the vision of your company, what they are working, they like what kind of project they are exciting, what project they are working upon, and they feel they are also growing working together with you.
As I understood that you, over the time, you switched more to the internal approach, right? So could you please elaborate what was the thought process that you need to, as you already had external team who were part of the whole team, right? So
Mhm.
what was the thought process why you decided to end up with this approach with having more in-house engineers?
I mean, I'll keep it direct. I mean, first thing also goes to finances because internal teams is the similar amount of talent you can have with the, uh, of course, your internal part as well. So that one part, which is basic, I would say for everybody, right? Second part is also more about the long-term commitment because only thing that we did not have a control to that if that developer moves out, right? And
Mm-hmm.
he decides to that, okay, I'm going somewhere else. I cannot sit back on that negotiation with him that, hey, why are you switching? Can we talk something? Can we continue with you, right? If
Mm-hmm.
I want to retain, I won't have that much. So this is also like looking more long term. But apart from that, as also as a startup, is also very important that developing your family, which is there partly, but it's still, as I said, that you don't have full influence. You have partial influence, but not full influence. How you can develop this team, and it's as a startup, that what is our biggest asset? Our people, right? I mean, it's not the product, it's not the business that you make, it's your people that you primarily in early stage claim that this is what you own or this is what is your asset. So
Mm-hmm.
for those reasons, it was important to also have our more longer, long-term commitment with internal teams. Also, there are other things like, as a startup, you offered benefits like ESOPs, which is difficult to give if it's an external team, right? But your employees get ESOPs, they are
Mm-hmm.
committed because they are growing with the growth of the company. So these are simple things which are relevant to startups, may not be relevant to other companies, but that definitely is crucial when taking this kind of call. And that was one of the honest reason why we took more and
Mm-hmm.
more internal approach.
Yeah, thank you. And could you please share how do you measure your engineering team's productivity? I mean, how you measure it when you had like more external part of the team and now when you have more internal.
So we use OKR. I think OKR is one of the nice tool. Of course, it's very difficult to get hang of it.
Do you apply it for the team or for each person specifically?
So we do from the top down. So like we define a quarterly company OKR, followed
Mm-hmm.
by deriving team OKRs, deriving individual OKRs as well. So
Mm-hmm.
that goes from top to bottom. It basically aligns with everybody else. And we use that also for our external teams, whoever on long term. If there is 1 month short project a team is coming up, then of course they won't be part of the OKR. But all the teams that we work were like for us 2 quarter or longer, then we also had same system, OKR reviews, basically part of their portfolio as well, their work.
Mm-hmm. And there is an interesting question. So, sometimes it happens that some developers, they focus on their own job. They focus on how they create code, how they code, and they're not necessarily engaged in a kind of the high mission or high vision of the product. And they just want to code. They're looking for interesting tasks, challenging engineering tasks. So how do you solve this in your company? How you explain the mission and like make people on the same page to reach that goals? Because I think that only with the same understanding of where we are all going, that's kind of the way to achieve the goals. I mean the top company goals. So what is your opinion on that?
Of course, this is one of the quite challenging problem which happens not only in developer across all verticals or all places within a company. I think we'll go back to this OKR methodology that we discussed, that we have a company OKR, like, I mean, people who are not aware about OKR, like is objective key result that you decide on a
Mm-hmm.
very high level that what you want to achieve as an objective, and then you define certain key results to achieve that over the quarter. So we do quarter, but people do it by like 6 months or even a year or monthly. Then we decide this is the company goal that company want to achieve in this quarter. Now, how this team can contribute to that company goal. So let's say company want to make a new certification to one new market, right? Or get approved or something like that, right? Or enter a new market. Then, of course, the regulatory team has to make sure that all regulations are there, but the software team has to make sure that all adaptation that is required for that market is clear. So then you derive the team OKR. Within the team OKR, when you sit with all developer, you say, what do you do? You're a backend person, right? And to reach that goal, we need this much from the backend, right? So how would you contribute? And they are still open. And this is why it's not a micromanagement that every task is coming from OKR. This is our broad goal for 3 months. And this is what we want to achieve. There will be something here and there which can interest you, you can still do, but this is something that we are doing. So not having very micromanagement, but of giving them this broad direction every quarter, reminding them, helped setting that framework that they are aligned to the vision. That one. But that's the one, I mean, just a framework, would call it. But that doesn't solve the entire problem. The second part is that what is very important for not only developer or any team, if you are a manager or if you are a team leader, you also have to understand what you are getting paid for, right? So you are getting basically to put the team aligned and make them feel that they are growing in a right direction. So it can never be one directional communication that this is a task and you have to complete it. If you want to get best out of your team, this approach would never work. So sitting together with the team member on a frequent basis and asking what are their ambition, where they want to go, what they want to achieve in this quarter, in this month, or probably in next year, right? And then somehow, because you have the bigger picture that where company is heading and where this skill can be useful, it's very beautiful actually when you actually start breaking it down. A lot of time we didn't have to struggle to find out that the team member had a different ambition and company had different, and how do we find a match? Because there will be always something or other where their ambition kind of matches. So if you sit together and have this bi-directional communication all the time, that where you want to go, not only where company want to go, then it takes time. It's not just you have to spend time with the team member, but that's, I'll go back why you're getting paid for to sit with the team member, right? To spend time with them. So good leadership can bring communication, I would say. More and more we talk, more and more we openly talk about it, things get in a right direction.
Yeah, I want to add here that sometimes you have some challenges or problems you want to solve, and you're looking for talents on the market to hire people to help you with the problem. But with that approach, when you like try to learn your people, you can be surprised that somebody from your team already wants to contribute to that problem. And even if they don't have enough experience, they have loyalty and they may have like good kind of basis and good qualities to accomplish the task. When you see that, the solution is obvious what to do, rather than like just to say take new risks, onboard a new person. That is a solution of like proposing
I totally
to
agree.
solve this.
And
Yeah.
we did that. I mean, like we also started to, now it became even more of a ritual that if a new job post goes out on our website, we also post it internally. By the way, this is something we are opening. So if some, either you know some of your friends, or is this something that you might be interested in, reach out to us, right? It's just a very open communication. Sometimes can be doing one liner, right? Just posting in a chat, hey, who knows this? And somebody comes by, hey, I know this. But like, do you have 2 hours for me? Maybe you can fix it for me, right? Or whatever. So this kind of informal communication, and it's not gonna be, I mean, like, they know that this openness is there, right? So that's where, specifically with the team of our size, which is, I would say, around 100 people, like less than 100, slightly less than 100 people, is totally worth it giving that kind of try. And even when you scale, right, you have to find out how to find the right channel of communication. But totally agree with you what you said. People always surprise us. Sometimes somebody came up with some skill. I like, really? Do you? Okay, cool.
Yeah, right. You mentioned the scaling. So, do you have plans to scale rapidly? And if so, what are your vision on how you can scale, like in perspective of engineering development?
Yes, that's of course first plan. I mean, as a startup, you have to, because that's what the definition of a startup, that when you get your things right, you have to scale exponentially. So yes, we are striving for that. And of course, fingers crossed, we'll hopefully get there
Hmm.
soon, get to that problem. Plans, how to manage that, that was what helped us last few years of trying all different methods, right? How to hire internal team with slow pace or also with the rapid pace, versus also how to quickly onboard external team to get things done. These all small experiments we have done already, right? So we have a confidence that yes, when we scale, depending on the problem, because this is a very broad question, that when you scale, what do you do? But depends. When you scale, are you scaling your software or not? Maybe sometime you're not, you're just scaling your hardware, right? Or maybe you are scaling the software, or maybe you are scaling your business. So whenever that particular problem comes, we will go for one of these approach, which boils down to this category, either working with an external team or finding the right internal team, or mix of the both. But because we have done that in past, that gives us a confidence that something or other will work out.
And could you please elaborate on where you see there is better applications for external teams and for internal teams in terms of scaling?
So what is important, that, as I said, what was the key difference between external and internal thing? If I keep the economics aside, right? That was the having the full visibility of the company. Where are we heading?
Hmm.
Keeping the vision intact, because they have been part of you for long term. They understand where we want to go, where not. So, I mean, I'm thinking out loud. I didn't think about this problem before, but I think if you ask that question specifically, if you want to work with these two teams together, where will you place it? My first bet will be that I put internal teams into, let's say, take an external team who is working on certain project, while an internal person is managing that project, right? Being that manager of that external team. So that will help us, because when we scale, it's not that only the current existing manager, whoever are they will be able to manage all the external teams at the same time, because it's not practical. But because we have already created a good amount of internal people who have that confidence and they are growing in their role, they can take a new leadership position. They can then transmit that energy, that vibe, and that vision to the new team that you are quickly in onboarding. So that's how I would see the tree becoming, right? That your current team members becomes more of a initial manager for whichever new team you onboard. Then you can rely upon the external team. Okay, that person is managing it, he has a full visibility, and he will get things done.
And also, I heard about the approach when you give to external teams some kind of end-to-end product. So they work on some specific parts, and somebody from your team can manage that process
This is what
product.
I was saying. So end to end product is also always nice, because when you give them, then they have their own creativity and freedom. You have to define,
Hmm.
and the challenge there to always define the scope very clearly, that this is exactly what we want to achieve. But if you have that scope defined, then of course there may be much more experience in that particular project, as even as compared to your internal team, and they can get it delivered. But if you have the scope and also the expectations defined, delivery timeline well defined, and as you said, then your one of the internal team is managing it. But yeah, end to end, and this we did in past. Actually, there was a moment where we needed to deliver one product within a month, because Our certification timeline just changed, and the auditor gave, hey, can we have it a bit before? And all our timeline changed. We onboarded an external team. We gave a clear scope and clear timeline, and they did an excellent job.
Hmm. Yeah. And Elon Musk said that he thinks that there is a must for engineering managers to be technically excellent. I agree with that. What are your thoughts?
I have a mixed view. I mean, I understand where he is coming from. That, of course, if you want to really, I mean, we have to understand the core emotion where he is coming from, right? That if you really want to resonate or understand the challenges of your team members, and if you have never done any coding in your life, you may be just cooking up whatever thought in your head, but it doesn't work on ground, right? So that definitely gives, we should, so there where I say that you should have experience, that to manage somebody, you should have similar level of understanding that you can fit yourself in their shoes, right? So there I totally agree that people should be there. But again, always we take things by words, right? Now, if we just go word by word, they has to be the excellent coder. What does it mean? That all the team I am managing, that I should be better coder than everybody in my team, and all the different skill that I'm managing within the team. It's just impossible, right? And it's just not even practical. If I'm managing a team of a full stack, and then there is a back end DevOps and front end and 15 different technology that my team is working upon. Excellent,
Life is
that's not
not
up
enough.
there. One life is not enough, exactly, right? So that's not practical, and that's what we have to understand. But what is practical? That if you have done good coding and you have a good understanding of the coding, so you can, irrespective of the language they use, you can still do a nice code review by guiding them what is the logical coding process, right? So these are basic things that you should be good at. And of course, you can be good at one or two language, but as you said, one life is not enough to do everything. So we don't have to take it word by word. The important is that, can you fit yourself in the shoe of the developer? And if they are stuck, can you help them? Right? Not only by just giving a nice and buttered word to and say very motivational statement, but really practically sitting with them, share your screen, show me your code, let's try to figure out where you can be going wrong, where things can be going wrong. If you have that much credibility or that much trust from your developers, then I think it's good. So you have to find that middle ground, because otherwise it's not just practical to know everything and then manage. And also, it's
Um,
also a bit egoistic. I would like to add one more part, because that also makes the leaders very egoistic. Because what helped in my life, that always knowing that at least in certain areas, my team members are much more skilled than me, right? And that allows me to give them that freedom, that do your things in your own way, right? And they come with beautiful solution, which I may not be able to bring by myself, even if I knew that part of the code, right? Or if I knew that language. So that ego we have to get away from, that, hey, I am the best coder here, so you better listen to me. No,
you mean the arrogance?
arrogance, exactly.
Hmm.
So that arrogance we should avoid, irrespective who are you, right? And for that, I would say that's where I see the risk of that statement. That if your manager is the best coder in the room, and at least he thinks that he is the best coder in the room, you can hardly avoid an arrogance.
Yeah,
And then
yeah,
creativity will be killed.
yeah. Great. Could you please share with us, if you can, what are kind of main challenges with the development team right now you are facing?
Challenges in the sense, what I realize, if I try to sum up in one word or something, that things require a cyclic process. There is never that something you develop a culture, you develop a process, and you simply rolled out a meeting or rolled out a training, and you assume that next 2 years everything is happening in that way, because everything has shown natural evolution as well. So always getting back, that okay, there will be, you start something, you will get misaligned, something will be, then you are very conscious of that, you get back there, you try to realign. It's a continuous and dynamic process. Accepting that and also being aware of that is the biggest challenge, because it's also not that you don't know this, but you don't know when it's coming, and suddenly something falls down, right? And then you're like, oh, we have to realign again.
You mean to get the feedback when you do some iteration? How do you build kind of a structure where you can get the constant feedback about the progress, right? That's
Exactly. Feedback about the progress and also realign. Just we cannot assume that we told something or we established a process 1 year back and it is being followed every day without me reminding or we getting back in a same meeting again and saying, hey, this is what why we brought this process and this is what was the benefit of this process. So just having this dynamic constant reminder and also changing that part. But it's a very high level statement. But
mm-hmm.
when it comes to the real challenge, I would go back, yeah, because everybody evolve in their own way, right? So developer that started with you 3 years back was just learning. The energy that person had or ambition that person have may have a different thing today, right? His personal life may also change. How much you are aware of that them as a person, and again realigning where you can put their best use use of their current conditions. That takes a lot of time, and that I think I would say when we grow and when we are actually managing team gets bigger and bigger, something gets overlooked, and that's where the problems start to come.
Yeah, I just had a conversation with a talented developer who wants to become manager, and like we had a conversation about how important it is to make processes standard, and kind of a way how I see it, people think about the process. I mean, the management process, as you said, that they set up the process and that's it. Like in code, you just had the piece of code that does something and that's it.
Mhm.
But when you deal with people, you have that constant change, and that's really important. Yeah, I just want also to emphasize and add how important it is, and people who didn't have experience, management experience, yeah, you can get into trouble because the expectations and actual results do not match.
That's correct. So not
Yeah,
only the people changing, but also our surrounding changes pretty much, right?
yeah,
Everything
yeah,
changes. So it will be very difficult to say this is a process and that's how it will run for 10 years. I think we
yeah,
are just being too naive there, right? to
yeah.
to assume that. Mhm.
Sure, and we are coming to the end of the interview. And do you have any advice you can give to engineering managers, or maybe to engineers who want to become engineering managers?
Mhm. Um, it will be, of course, very not justice to tell that I give one advice and that will be applicable because everybody has their own challenge and depends on the team you are managing, the context you are managing. So, any of the statement I would say may not be universal, but I can just share my experience. What
Mm-hmm,
helped me, I mean, just consider my background. Okay, I knew coding. I'm a physicist at the end, right? So, I knew coding just during my physics work, but I didn't do any industrial level software development or something before taking up the role of being the manager, right? So I
mm-hmm,
understood coding, but I didn't do in the same setting my developer does, right? But being always open to listen to them, understanding, landscaping their talent and learning from each other, that mode always helped keeping team a very fun and also progressing. So I would say, yeah, you need not to be, as we discussed, the best coder. I mean, you should have some basics to that, you have that ideas, but more important is that how are you investing your time and considering leadership as a responsibility. And leadership come as a part of, I mean, leadership has an important component, a mentorship. So leadership is not about assigning a task and changing people that why this is not done, right? Being the mentor, being the buddy who is part of the entire growth, which is also helping you. It's not that you are doing a favor to anyone, right? It's helping you because more time you invest in creating these new leaders. Every leader has a responsibility to create a new leader, I would say. So more you are conscious of this fact, that will simplify your life. Because even within your team, there are more and more people that you mentor, and then on it's an investment. It's like a startup investment, right? You invest on 20 startup, maybe one of them picks up and 19 fails. But that's what will happen with the team. You invest a lot of time with all your team members. Maybe one of them picks up, but that
mm-hmm.
will solve your next chapter when you are moving to the next step. So being conscious that mentorship is an important part of the being leader, right? Leadership is not about just getting an update. So that is one part I would say is very, at least helped me. scaling the team and to be able to rely upon what is going on, and putting yourself in the shoes of the people, that what is there, and also getting to know people on a personal level as well, that if this is not done, what's there, right? Is it just that you're not making direct assumptions, right? Having an open culture. These are the few things which is applicable for any leader, I would say, goes. Specific to engineering managers are that, yeah, how much then you can relate with that challenge, right? Where it comes the first part of our discussion. If you can sit and spend time with them, or you have done it yourself. So always remember that you were in the similar position at some point back, right?
Remember your roots.
Remember your.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's funny because,
Yeah.
like this is, I would like to make that comment here, because sometimes I feel like if people has gone through a difficult pathway, they go into that arrogance, then the others should also suffer, right? And they go through the similar path. I mean, not applicable for everybody, but I've seen some people taking that route. So even if they know, they're like, no, you have to go through the difficult pathway like I did. So I won't help you right away. Depends. I mean, it's all leadership style and mentorship style, but just be conscious that, yeah, we don't have to keep reinventing the wheel all the time, right? So maybe if you give some nice push to somebody, they can come with something better even. All these different consciousness, that, and it boils down to the same part, that at the end, more you time invest in your team and let them level up, it will simplify your work. So it's not a favor you're doing, actually it's doing a favor to yourself.
Yeah, true leader is someone who creates leaders. It's yeah, I totally agree with that. And that's kind of art how to do it. And that's management art. Yeah, thank you, Ankit. And I would like to finish our interview with a kind of light exercise. We call it rapid fire round. I will ask you several personal questions and you come up with whatever answers you want. What is the latest movie that impressed you the most?
So movies, I'm a movie buff, so almost every movie impresses me. There's this movie I think I watched was Trial of Chicago. I think that's how the name was. I forgot, but yeah, that one was, if I am not mistaken with the name, it was with Edmund. So I liked it. That one was good.
Why? What was special in it?
I normally love the real life, like, a biographical kind of movies, which is based in
Mhm.
some part, which is as real life characters, but presented in a way that is still entertaining. How do I call it?
Who was the hero?
Redmond, I think. He was the hero. The Trial of Chicago 7, that was the movie name. There were a lot of good actors out there. But main reason, because it was based on a real life incidents. It may sound a bit ignorant, but I love learning history from movies sometimes. And then I go back and learn history with the real credible sources. But it gives me a motivation to understand. So, but I love biographical movie in general. That was one of the reasons.
Cool. What is the location that impressed you the most?
I think as a traveler, I think Barcelona was one of my favorite for some reason.
Mhm.
Berlin
I love
is
Barcelona.
second favorite, but it's just more about the. I'm pretty hip, so I love these locations. Also, the people, openness of the people to just chill out and
Yeah, siesta.
siesta.
Yeah.
Actually, I mean, we are a sleep company, so we are pro siesta. Actually,
Yeah.
even if we are based in Zurich, right? We are pro siesta company.
Yeah, sure. And what is the piece of advice you would give to your 20-year-old self?
Uh, to 20-year-old, I will say, don't stress too much. Things works out. If I look back, everything was fine, okay, but I was just very stressed that I'm just running out of time and I should do this or I should do that,
Hmm.
which I still do, but I got better confidence because it was part of the insecurity, that maybe what if this doesn't happen and what if that doesn't happen, right? One of the advice that I got from my teacher, which actually already during that time, which helped me, that okay, no exam is the last one, that carried forward in my whole life, in good or bad time, both ones. That even if it went bad, then there is another chance. But if it went good, don't be too arrogant about it. Maybe the next
Hmm.
one where you can fail, right?
Yeah.
So both cases, it helped me aligning, and I would say, yeah, the better confidence I will give.
Yeah, cool. I think that's a perfect way to end today's interview. Thank you, Ankit, for sharing so much with us. I loved the fact how you shared how you manage your teams with the OKRs and basically for what you manage, for what tasks you manage the external and internal teams. Thank you for sharing more about your company. I think that the problem you're solving is really huge, and the way how you do it is kind of elegant. Thank you very much. But before we finish, what is the best way to get in touch with you if our listeners want to get some advice or are looking for any collaborations?
I'm quite active on LinkedIn, so LinkedIn is a
Mhm.
common way that can people can just reach out to me, or like yeah, LinkedIn I think is the best easiest way. Of course, you can also shoot an email, uh, and in general, I'm very approachable person. I would say if a person writes down that they want to get in touch, I'm very happy. I'm a very people person, so I would never complain. Why are you writing me? So if you think I can help in any way, or you have some thoughts to share, feel free to get in touch.
We will include all the links in the description section. Thank you for your time, for the lovely conversation. Thank you, listeners, and we will catch up in next episodes.
Thank you very much. Thank you for
Thank
nicely
you.
moderating the conversation. I hope this was helpful for our listeners.
Thank you.